Sarah fed a homeless beggar every day, never asking for anything in return. Until one afternoon the beggar came back, but this time not in rags. Who was Raymond? Why did he pretend to be poor and homeless? And why did he choose Sarah? Sit back and let's find out together in this touching, emotional and shocking story. This is the story of a poor and kind girl named Sarah and a homeless beggar who everybody laughed at. But behind the dirty clothes and sad face was a secret no one knew. Raymond was a young man. But not just any young man. He was a billionaire. He lived in one of the fanciest parts of Lagos, where big men stayed. His house was huge, bigger than a school building and shiny like a palace. He had many cars and in different colors. He had houses, lands, shops and big businesses. If he wanted to travel, he didn't wait. He just packed his bags and flew away. Everyone thought Raymond had everything. But they were wrong. Because deep inside Raymond felt empty. His heart was tired. His smile was fake. His eyes were always sad. Why? Because people didn't really love him. They only loved his money. Especially the ladies. They would smile when they saw his car. They would pretend to love him. But when they got what they wanted, gifts, money, trips, they would leave. And just 2 weeks ago, something happened that broke Raymond's heart into pieces. Her name was Nora. She was beautiful, and Raymond loved her very much. He paid her school fees from the very beginning, even sent her to a private university. He gave her a beautiful life. He even paid for her master's degree in a foreign country. But guess what? Just when he thought she would come back and marry him, Nora left him. She didn't say much. She didn't explain. She just married someone else. Raymond didn't cry in front of anybody. But every night when the lights were off and his room was quiet, he would lie on his soft bed, cover his face and cry. He cried because his heart was broken. He cried because he felt used. He cried because he was tired of fake love. That night, Raymond made a promise to himself. I will never love again. Never. But as days passed, he felt worse. More and more empty. Money didn't make him happy anymore. He looked around his big house, the chairs, the TV, the marble floors, the big kitchen, but everything felt cold. He didn't want to come home to silence anymore. He wanted to come home to a family. He wanted someone to hug him after work. Someone to say, "How was your day?" He wanted to laugh over dinner. He wanted to talk and be heard. Not because he was rich but because he was himself. Even at his office, where people smiled at him and greeted him with respect, he knew many of them were jealous. They wanted his money. Some of his friends wished they could be him. But Raymond, the billionaire, secretly wished he could be them. 'Cause some of them had love. Some had wives, children, warm homes. Things he didn't have. At night, when no one was watching, Raymond would whisper, I just want someone to love me for me. Not for my cars. Not for my money. Just me. One quiet weekend, Raymond sat in his living room alone. He turned on the TV to watch a football match, but he wasn't paying attention. Suddenly his phone buzzed. It was his mother. He sighed. He didn't feel like talking, but he knew why she was calling. His mother had been disturbing him for months to find a wife. Hello, my son, she said. You have not answered me about our last talk. Have you found a wife yet? Raymond sighed again. He rubbed his forehead and said, Mummy, I know this will make you sad, but the truth is, most girls in Lagos just want my money. They take and take, then leave. I don't want to marry someone who loves me because of money. I want someone who loves me for who I am. His mother paused, then said, I can find a nice girl from my church. A good one. No, Mummy, Raymond replied softly. I'll find her myself. There was silence. Then his mother said something that broke his heart even more. Then do it quickly. Or do you want to wait until I die? I want to carry my grandchildren. All my friends are now grandmothers. And with that she hung up. That night Raymond couldn't sleep. He turned this way. He turned that way. He pulled his pillow close. He even closed his eyes tight and covered his head with his blanket. But sleep refused to come. He just lay there thinking. Thinking of how lonely he felt. Thinking of how his money couldn't buy him the one thing he needed most. Love. His mother's words kept ringing in his ears. Do you want to wait until I die? I want to carry my grandchildren. All my friends are now grandmothers. Raymond sat up in bed. He placed his hands on his chest and whispered sadly. I really want to grant my mother her wish before she dies. And I want a loving and peaceful family that I can call mine. He sighed and looked up at the ceiling. But how? How do I make this happen? He asked himself. I have tried many times. But they only care about my money. Nobody truly cares about me. Then quietly, Raymond got down from the bed. He knelt on the floor, bent his head and prayed. He spoke slowly and gently. Dear God, my heart is tired. Please calm my troubled mind. Please guide me. Show me what to do. When he finished praying, he stayed on his knees for a while. Then he stood up, climbed back into bed, and slowly closed his eyes. The next day the sky was bright and the sun was high. Raymond wore a simple shirt and jeans. He didn't wear his gold wristwatch. He didn't take the black car with tinted windows. He just wanted a quiet day. He was standing by a vulcanizer's workshop on the roadside. He needed to pump air into his car tires. The air machine was buzzing and the vulcanizer was busy working. As Raymond waited, something happened. A girl was walking down the road. She carried a plate of food in her hands. She looked simple but neat. Her hair was neatly braided, and she walked with grace. She came to the vulcanizer and greeted him cheerfully. Good afternoon, Uncle Sam. Here's your food. The vulcanizer smiled. Ah, thank you, Sarah. God bless you. Raymond watched quietly. He saw the way she smiled. She didn't look proud. As she turned to leave, Sarah saw Raymond and said politely, Good afternoon, sir. Raymond was surprised. Not many people greeted him unless they knew he was rich. But this girl didn't know who he was. Still, she smiled at him with kindness. Raymond smiled warmly and said, Good afternoon. Sarah walked away with her empty tray, her slippers making small sounds on the dusty road. Raymond turned to the vulcanizer and asked curiously, Who was that pretty girl? The vulcanizer looked up and smiled. That's Sarah, he said. She's the daughter of Mama Sarah, the food vendor. They sell food down that road. Sarah is a very good girl. She's respectful, humble, and hardworking too. Raymond looked down the road, his eyes following the path she had taken. Can you describe their stall for me? He asked. The vulcanizer nodded quickly. Of course. It's not far. Just drive down that way and you'll see a small wooden shop by the roadside. They cook with firewood. You can't miss it. Raymond nodded. Thank you, he said kindly. Then he got into his car and drove off slowly, thinking deeply. That night, Raymond came home and took a warm bath. He wore his soft pajamas and laid in bed. But this time he wasn't sad. He was smiling. He kept thinking about Sarah, the girl with the polite voice and honest smile. He placed his hands behind his head and whispered, I think I like her. He paused. There's just something different about her. He kept thinking. But how do I get to know her for who she truly is? What should I do differently this time? Suddenly his eyes widened. He sat up fast and shouted, Yes, that's it. His heart started beating faster. He was excited. He stood up and began to pace around the room. That is what I will do, he said. I think this plan will work. Then he looked up and said clearly, I will disguise to be poor and homeless for days. I will go to their shop and beg for food. I will also hang around there, just to see how she treats people who have nothing to give her. He smiled again and sat on his bed. If she treats me with kindness, even when I look dirty and poor, then maybe she's the one I've been looking for. He pulled his blanket, covered himself, and for the first time in a while, Raymond slept peacefully. The very next day, Raymond woke up very early. He dressed up like a beggar. He wore old, torn clothes so he would look really poor. He looked into the mirror and said, "Even I don't recognize myself." Then he left his big, shiny house and went to the food stall that the vulcanizer had described. When he got there, he didn't say a word. He just sat by a corner, looking sad, tired, and hungry. His tummy growled and he held it like it would stop the sound. Sarah and her mother, Mama Sarah, were busy serving customers. They smiled as they handed out plates of hot rice, beans, and yam porridge. There was laughter in the air, pots steaming, spoons clinking, and children running around with their snacks. After a while, Sarah sat down to count the money they had made so far. Then her eyes noticed the sad-looking man in the corner. His clothes were dirty, and his eyes looked weak like someone who hadn't eaten in days. "Oh, poor man," she whispered. "He must be very hungry." She walked gently to him and asked kindly, "Do you care for some food, sir?" Raymond, still pretending to be the beggar, replied in a soft voice, "Yes, please. I haven't eaten in days." Sarah didn't waste a second. She ran to her mother. "Mama, there's a hungry man over there. Can I give him food, please?" Mama Sarah looked over at the beggar and nodded. "Yes, you can, but don't add more than one piece of meat. We didn't buy enough meat today." "Okay, Mama." Sarah quickly served the beggar a plate of food with love and care. She also gave him a cup of clean, cool water. Raymond took the food, his hands shaking like leaves in the wind. He ate it slowly at first, then faster and faster, like a hungry lion that just found meat. When he finished, he said, "Thank you so much. You are very kind." Later that evening, while they were packing up, Sarah walked up to him and said sweetly, "If you don't have a place to sleep tonight, you can sleep here in our stall. It's small, but at least it's safe." Raymond nodded and smiled. Thank you so much." That night, Raymond went home, took off the disguise, and lay on his big soft bed. But his heart was no longer heavy. He stared at the ceiling and smiled to himself. "She treated a beggar like a king," he said. "She didn't even know I had anything. She is so kind, so gentle, so different." The next day he went again, still looking like a beggar. But this time, Sarah was washing plates at the back of the stall, and Mama Sarah was serving customers. As soon as Mama Sarah saw him, she smiled and shouted, "Sarah, your friend is here. Come and give him some food." Sarah wiped her wet hands, rushed forward, and greeted him with a smile. "Good afternoon, sir," she said warmly. Then she served him food and water again. He watched her quietly as she helped other customers. She smiled at everyone. She even gave candy to a crying baby. Raymond's heart beat faster and faster. "She is the one," he whispered to himself that night. "She's not just pretty, her heart is golden. Even her mother is kind." Then he stood up and said loudly, "She passed the test. Now it's time for the big reveal." The next day, Sarah looked around while counting money and said, "Mama, my friend, the beggar didn't come today. I hope he's okay." Mama Sarah replied, "He has no home, my dear. He may have gone somewhere else." 1 week later, it was a hot, sunny afternoon. Mama Sarah was at the stall serving customers. Suddenly, everyone gasped. A shiny, sleek, luxurious car stopped in front of the food stall. The customers paused. Even Mama Sarah's mouth opened wide in surprise. In all her years selling food there, no car like that had ever stopped by. Then, a very handsome young man stepped out of the car. He wore a shiny black tuxedo suit. His shoes sparkled, and his smile was brighter than the sun. "Good afternoon, Ma." He greeted Mama Sarah politely. "Good afternoon. Did you miss your way?" Mama Sarah asked, still very surprised. "No, Ma. I'm here to see Sarah." "You know my daughter?" she asked again, still unsure. "Yes, Ma. I do. She went to the market." but you can sit and wait for her. She will soon be back. Mama Sarah gave him a plate of food and a cup of water. Have this while you wait. Thank you, Ma. A few hours later, Sarah came back from the market, carrying a basket of onions and tomatoes. Good afternoon, sir, she said to the man sitting on the wooden bench. Then she walked past him. She didn't recognize him at all. Raymond smiled and stood up. Sarah, he called. He turned confused. Yes. Do I know you? Yes, you do, Raymond said gently. You just don't recognize me like this. He stepped closer and said, Do you remember the homeless beggar that you always gave food and water? Sarah's eyes lit up, her mouth dropped open. Yes, but he hasn't come in days. Raymond held her hands and said softly, He is here. He's standing right in front of you. That beggar was me. Sarah froze. She blinked fast. Her heart thumped like a drum. Boom, 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 boom. What? You were the beggar? She finally asked. Yes, Raymond replied, smiling. I was never a beggar. It was all a test. My name is Raymond, and I am the CEO of Raymond Holdings Limited. I wanted to find someone who would love me for who I am, not for my money. And you are that person. He knelt down and brought out a small box. Inside it was a sparkling diamond ring. Sarah, will you marry me? Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. Tears rolled down her cheeks like a quiet stream. I will talk to my mother and give you an answer tomorrow, she said. That night, Sarah told Mama Sarah everything. Mama Sarah couldn't believe it. You mean that beggar was a billionaire? She shouted, holding her chest. Yes, Mama, Sarah said, smiling and crying at the same time. Mama Sarah held her hand gently and said, If you love him enough to spend the rest of your life with him, then accept his proposal. The next day, Raymond returned to the food stall, this time with flowers in his hands. Sarah smiled at him and said, Yes, I will marry you. Raymond jumped with joy and hugged her gently. They got married in a beautiful wedding with flowers, music, and dancing. Raymond opened a big restaurant for Mama Sarah and built her a lovely new house. After Sarah graduated from university, she became pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl. Raymond was so happy. He had finally fulfilled his mother's wish, to find a loving, peaceful family of his own. And so, they lived happily ever after,